Good evening. Let's call to order the Human Relations Commission meeting of September 12th, 2024 at 7:13 p.m. The city does not tolerate disruptive behavior in our meetings. Sunnyvale prides itself on the rich diversity of our residents. We are committed to creating a culture of belonging where members of our diverse community feel included, safe, and respected. This commission meeting is considered a limited public forum, which means the commission can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech. Speaker comments must be limited to the agenda item being considered by the commission for consent and public hearings. Speaker comments during oral communications must be limited to matters within the commission's authority, generally referred to as within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. If a speaker's comments are not related to an agenda item, the presiding officer will rule the speaker out of order. A speaker will not be ruled out of order because of a disagreement with the content of their speech. Location and teleconference meeting details are available on the meeting agenda. Use the Show Captions button to view captions on Zoom. Comments on matters not on the agenda must be submitted prior to the time I call the item for oral communications. Comments on agenda items must be submitted prior to the time I close the public hearing on the agenda item. Speakers are requested to keep their comments to the time period set for public comments for the agenda item, which will be strictly enforced. Guidelines are posted on the city's website and on the Human Relations Commission meeting agenda. Please join me in the salute to the flag. Recording officer, may we please have the roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Rosenfeld, Commissioner Zapata, Chair Sakia,
Present.
Vice Chair Ramasetti.
Present.
We have 3 commissioners present. Commissioner Zapata's absence is unexcused and Commissioner Camacho's absence is excused.
Thank you, Janelle. Moving on to our study session, item 240971. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is.
All right, thanks, Fernanda.
So the first item is 24-0971, the continuation of event, the immigrant experience through storytelling circles. You have already in your packet the flyers that we will be using for the storytelling circles happening on September 29 from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Sunnyvale Community Services. The report that I have for you is that we have sent emails through the HRC email list as well as the Unity email list to around 2,000 folks. It has been already posted in our social media channels, which is Facebook's, Instagram, and Nextdoor. At this point, I have 10 people registered for the event. This is without the catalyst that you have shared with me, some folks from the organization as well from the city. So my ask for you will be to continue amplifying the message, having people go and sign up. There is no requirement for the registration, but it's more of an idea for us to know how many folks are going to be attending. Since we will be providing some refreshments. So it will be just some probably snacks, unless we want to bring some, I think last time it was discussed that maybe we can bring some food that, belongs to some particular culture, and it could be kind of like an invitation also for the commissioners to share some of that. So it's open for you to discuss. The information on the website is on the Sunnyvale calendar of events. So if you have any questions, please direct folks to the calendar, where it's also, the details as well as the kind of like the guideline for the event. So I will talk about that as well during the workshop that we're planning for next week on the 19th, which, by the way, is going to be a public meeting because you can all attend. And so we're probably going to have a quorum. And we don't want to violate the Brown Act. So it will be a community notice stating the title of the event, the Storytelling Circle Workshop. And that will be a space where people can actually craft your immigrant story and practice sharing it in preparation to the event. Is only going to be via Zoom, so it's not going to be a hybrid. You don't have to come here. I will provide the Zoom link, and it's going to be an hour. So from 7 to 8 o'clock, in case you want to invite other folks to be part of the crafting. There is also some guidelines online as far as what that entails in case you want to share that with your catalyst. So just an idea of, and you have that on your packet, but an idea of the program is, and we can change this, but I think it was basically discussed in our previous meetings that we're going to have a welcome. I will need to confirm with the mayor, but the mayor already knows that this event is happening, as well as the city council. They are both aware of this event, as well as the webinar that we're planning also during United Against Hate Week. Then we'll do an introduction for the Human Relations Commission. So I will invite Chair Tequila to be the person speaking, or whoever you decide in the commission to do this part. The introduction of the storytelling as well, kind of like giving an overview of the event and the importance of why was this topic selected and why it's important for Sunnyvale and for the commission. Then I'll lead the story crafting workshop. So basically, we'll go over how to prepare, the same thing that we will do over the workshop next week. This will be a very mini workshop, but for people who didn't attend and walk-ins, they will have a space to create their own story. I feel that for that, it's probably going to be half an hour at the most, just because I want to highlight the stories more than the workshop. And because this is a pilot, we will determine if we continue to do this for next year, then we can extend it or reduce it. You know, this is going to be an event for us to observe and determine what worked well, what didn't, what can be done better the next year, or what needs to kind of like be scratch and do something different. So just keep that in mind. And then after that mini workshop, we'll end up doing the storytelling circles. And I shared that I have received some of the storytelling. Thank you. And so the idea will be to put it kind of like under themes. So I have some ideas of either resiliency or forgiveness, or beginnings, new beginnings, things like that, that could lead people to choose the table where they want to sit, depending on the theme. And that will be something that I would like for you to give me feedback. And finally, we'll close with that reflection and kind of like takeaways. And that's pretty much the agenda for that day. We'll be having kind of like the table flags, or depending on the theme, could be different decorations just to name the tables, and any other things that you think appropriate or that you have ideas, please email them to me. No, don't wait until the next time we meet, because it will have passed the event. So emails are welcome. So yeah, so that's basically my presentation. Anything that you would like to add based on what I share? I'll take notes.
Okay, I will open this now for us to make comments and questions.
I just want to say thank you. The email with the suggested language that you sent, Fernando, was very helpful, and I've sent it out to various groups, and I've heard some positive things. People seem to be really interested and excited. And I think to me, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a fantastic event and I hope we have full RSVPs. So I'm encouraging people to RSVP, but so far just the word of mouth feedback that I've got is people are really, really happy to have this kind of an event. So thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question for Nan in terms of logistics, in terms of how we're gonna host it. Are you opening it? Are you opening the whole event?
The welcome,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking
Okay,
the
great.
mayor will be.
Oh, okay,
The
the mayor?
person, or, yeah, that's my hope, that the council
For a city council
is
member.
present, and, or at least some members are present and have that, yes.
And then we need to give people the instructions in terms of what to do when they're coming in. So are we gonna play that role of helping people settle in?
So if you look at the program, we have the welcome that will be the mayor, the introduction to the Human Relations Commission, that will be
That's
one of
us.
you.
Yeah.
The introduction to storytelling, it can be a conversation, or it can be part of based on I just don't have it right in front of me. Oh, actually, you know what? Yes, I do have it. But I think I called it. Anyway, so if you look at the agenda where you have the photo of us with an explanation of what the immigrant experience is, with the introduction, then the program comes. So all that is going to be at the tables. So people
we
are
won't do
going to.
anything live anymore.
We probably can explain briefly what is it, because I think it's important for the folks that are coming in, even though they are going to be invited, or they probably have the information from their website. It will be important to frame the presentation in that context of why storytelling is important for the commission, why those experiences are being highlighted, and maybe the story of how this was part of last year's discussions and this year's discussions for the commissioners, and why it's important. And then the fact that Sunnyvale is 51% immigrant, right? And so it's important to also recognize that part.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are you gonna add anything, Venkat? Okay. So Fernanda, I will commit to start posting this on Nextdoor and other things. I don't have Facebook. Okay, but I'll.
So the Nextdoor post came out. So if you see it, please like it, or forward it, just make it more visible. And then you got all the information via email. So if you can send it to your circles, that would be great as well. Then Kat, if you can actually, I had sent the information to the school district, but if you can actually promote it with the student groups from the high school, that would be great as well.
I can definitely send the emails, and I can maybe ask from other schools as well, not only Fremont High School.
Yeah. And then in preparation to the workshop next week, if you want to send me I know you send me your kind of like a small draft. I don't need to read the whole draft. It's more like if you want me to read it, that's great. If you want me to give you feedback before the 19 is great. But at least for the 19, I want you to pick, if you look at the immigrant experience document where it says how to prepare, if you can go on those steps to build a compelling story, if you have that key moment that you want to delve into, at least have that part, so we can work on that. And then if you feel like sharing it so other people give you feedback as well, maybe Esther, you can be, because you gave me the full story, that could be kind of like a model that we can pivot from there or start from there. Okay.
And I'm also going to say that I think your feedback to me about reading it out loud is a really good suggestion, because when you read, it's very different to write something. And then when you read it out loud, you work out different kinks. Some things sound better in writing than spoken. So that was a good exercise for me to do. And I want to make just another comment going back to the promotion. I think it's important to do it in series, like to do a blast and then, maybe 2 blasts a week, because repetition, the more people see something, people see it once, they say, oh, I'll get to that later, and then they forget. But if it comes back again and again, they're more likely to sign up. Because we've got 10 people RSVP'd today and it's 2.5 weeks away.
Mhm,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And the other thing is that it would be great if I'm assuming that you're not going to read the story. I'm assuming that you're going to tell the story because it's storytelling, right? And you can have the story printed, kind of like to guide you. And the other part of reading the story or preparing the story is that you can time it to be, to have that impact at the end. So you're not going into like tangents and getting nervous and all that. So that's why we also want to practice it on the workshop next week. So that's because we also want to allow them to share their stories. So that will be the part the practical part of the workshop, and then also them listening and learning from you, but also having the opportunity to at least share a little bit of what they wrote or they thought about.
We had also discussed last time about having like art materials and other ways of expression. Has there been any progress on that?
Yes, I think we had the idea of bringing like colors, crayons, other like watercolors, things like that, in case people wanted to draw instead of write. Yes, we'll definitely bring all that. What I thought you were going to ask me is if we were going to have an artist draw I did look into it. And I wasn't expecting the price, the price tag. It was that expensive. I was just talking to Janelle that I thought was like, oh, it's going to be probably, a few $100s. No, it's 3,500 just to have an artist do kind of like a storytelling draw of what happened on the day. So no, that's not going to happen, but we'll definitely, I'll be taking photos, and we're going to look and see if we can get a professional photographer. If not, then I'll do my best with my iPhone.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Anyone else? Okay. I will now go ahead and open public comment on this specific item. Please submit a speaker card to the recording officer. Raise your digital hand now or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. I will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes. 3 minutes to speak. All right. Recording officer, do we have any in-person cards?
Not at this time, Chair.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak on this item before we hear from remote speakers? Okay. Recording officer, do we have any remote participants wishing to speak on this at this time?
We do not, Chair.
All right, I will close public comment. This is now the public's opportunity to address the commission or in oral communications, to address the commission on topics not listed on tonight's agenda and presentation item. This section is limited to 15 minutes and may be extended or continued after the public hearings / general business section of the meeting. Individuals may only speak once during oral communications. This commission meeting is a limited public forum, and the commission can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech. Speaker comments during oral communications must be limited to matters within the commission's authority, which is known as the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. If a speaker's comments are outside the commission's subject matter jurisdiction, the presiding officer will rule the speaker out of order. This allows the commission to conduct its business in a reasonably efficient manner and protects the rights of other speakers. A speaker will not be ruled out of order because of disagreement with the content of their speech. Please submit a speaker card to the recording officer, raise your digital hand now, or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. Before I open oral communications to the members of the public, we have an announcement to read. So this is about the Charter Review Committee application deadline. So recruitment is underway for the Charter Review Committee. The committee will gather and evaluate ideas for amendments to the city charter. Committee meetings will begin in December and run through early 2026. This charter review process will include public participation and adequate time for the city council to place any proposed changes on the November 2026 ballot. Applications are due by 4 p.m. on Thursday, October 24th, in order to be scheduled for an interview with council on Tuesday, November 2nd, or Wednesday, November 13th. General eligibility requirements include Sunnyvale residency. For more information, visit sunnyvale.ca.gov and search Charter Review Committee or call the Office of the City Clerk at 408-730-7483 to request an application. Okay, I will now call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. Do we have anyone? Recording officer?
We do not, Chair.
Oh, okay. Is anyone else interested in speaking under oral communications before we hear from remote speakers? No, okay. Recording officer, do we have any remote participants?
Not at this time.
Okay, I will go ahead and close oral communications. Okay. So we're moving now to the consent calendar. I will go ahead and open public comment on consent calendar items. Please submit a speaker card to the recording officer, raise your digital hand now, or dial *9 on a telephone to indicate you wish to speak. I will call on members of the public participating in person first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. Recording officer, do we have any? None? No?
We do not.
Okay. Does anyone else want to speak on a consent calendar item before we hear okay from remote? Recording officer, do we have any remote participants wishing to speak?
Not at this time.
Okay, I will close public comment and will now ask for a motion from my colleagues to... What are we doing, Janelle? Is it the minutes? Okay, to approve our last meeting's minutes. Oh, where's just the other one? Okay. Oh, I don't have it. Sorry. This is my first meeting.
So just to approve the consent calendar.
Okay. Oh. Say that again. Oh, okay, so this is a motion to approve the consent calendar item on meeting minutes. Okay. Is anyone going to make a motion?
I put forward a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the July and August meetings.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there discussion or advocacy on the motion? No, okay. Recording officer, please conduct a roll call vote.
Yes, Commissioner Rosenfeld,
Oh, here.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ramasetti,
Yes.
and Chair Sakia.
Yes.
The motion carries 3 yeses and Commissioner Camacho absent and Commissioner Zapata absent.
Okay. So we're going to move now to public hearings or general business. So the first is evaluating and considering the adoption of a universal basic income pilot program, which is a study issue. This is item number 240076. Is there a staff report on this?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ernie DeFrenchi. I'm the Affordable Housing Manager. And tonight I'm going to talk with you guys about a adoption of a universal basic income pilot program. We can go to the next slide, please, Janelle. This is the agenda for the presentation that I'm giving you. Today, we're going to talk about kind of a context of what a study is, some current programs, kind of where it's at, gaining momentum, looking at results, the outreach effort that our consultants undertook. We're going to discuss some fundamental questions, funding of a program, execution of a program, and then some next steps. Next slide, please. So a couple of, kind of to frame this properly for you, the study issue that was asked of us was to look at adoption of a universal basic income program. It's important to understand that a universal basic income program, or UBI, provides all individuals with a payment. A guaranteed basic income program, or a GBI, refers to a similar concept, but just a targeted population. So we're going to use the term GBI in our materials going forward because we believe that the intent of council at the time was to look at, a targeted population, not everybody in Sunnyvale. Okay, next slide, please. So in January of 22, it was introduced as a study issue. And in August of 23, we hired the Dalberg advisors to help us run the study and do all of the work to gather the data for our final report. Today, I'm going to provide you with the informational report. The draft final report is attached to the RTC in your packet. We are going to be asking you just for feedback, answer questions. There is no formal recommendation needed from this commission. Next slide. So we're going to talk about some parameters of a program. We initially need to make sure that we're benchmarking different types of programs in the community, benchmarking the funding sources, potential funding sources in the Bay Area that could help us fund a program like this. Looking at, pool sizes, what an application process could look like, how much money, what type of groups, things like that, to make sure that we're really narrowing in the specifics of this. Making sure that our outreach process is good. We've made sure we've got out into the community, talked to the right folks, not only participants in a potential program, but our social service providers, make sure we gather a lot of input and talk about metrics, administration. We all know that if we're going to be providing a guaranteed form of income to some folks, we're going to want to know that the results of that. Not necessarily where are they spending the money. That's not as important as when the program sunsets or ends and they're off the program, did they continue to achieve success? Did this help them move to a different place in life? And then we'll talk briefly about distribution processes, which is administration of a program. Next slide. So a little history for you. There's roughly 733 unhoused folks in Sunnyvale. But there are roughly 7,000 additional households that are in poverty. And by poverty, we define that as the 2022 federal poverty level for a family of four is $27,750. So in Sunnyvale, there are roughly 7,000 residents that are living under poverty level conditions. And there are roughly 8,000 more that are below the federal poverty line. So we do have a good, 15,000 or so of folks that are at a level which is just not sustainable. We all know that. So there is a real need out there for folks to be able to have some access to additional funds. Sunnyvale already currently has some programs that we target these populations with. One of those is our TBRA, our tenant-based rental assistance program. This slide kind of describes it. What our objective is to help with rental assistance for 2 years, making sure the household does not pay more than 30% of their income on housing. It's funded through our federal dollars, so our home fund that we get from the HUD. We have up to $1 million per year in assistance, and then some administrative funds for case management and administration. Currently, 40 households are participating, and it's administered by Sunnyvale Community Services. Some other programs and services in Sunnyvale that are important to know that directly help those that in this group of folks below the poverty line and at the poverty line is our partnership with the county on the North County Shelter over there at Hamlin Court. We've recently completed studies related to our 2020 housing strategy, including the right to lease and tenant protections ordinance, which gives some additional protections to tenants, especially those that potentially are in very low income affordable housing. It's making sure that they're protected. We have a mobile home park memorandum of understanding between mobile home park owners and the residents living in there. And then we also collect housing mitigation fees for non-residential developments, which we use to help nonprofit affordable housing developers to construct affordable housing in Sunnyvale. We're currently promoting accessory dwelling units as an option for folks. And some of our other programs and services include our investments that we've made in Sunnyvale, which is Work First Sunnyvale, Home First Transitioning, which is our unhoused service organization, is transitioning to We Hope Outreach. We have a housing improvement program, which is designed to help our senior, low-income senior community. And then we have various affordable housing sites and project funding, roughly 1,500 units in operation and another 750 in the pipeline. So as you can see, in addition to this potential program, we're really doing a lot of stuff in housing to help the unhoused and folks that are at risk of becoming unhoused. So it's important to give you that context of what we're doing. Some other additional things I think are important to know is that we've got some specific plans that we think will add a lot of housing in Sunnyvale, including affordable housing. And that's the Moffett Park Plan, the East Sunnyvale Plan, Lawrence Station Plan, the El Camino Real specific plans. And you can see on the slide roughly how many new housing units we expect to happen with those plans. And then all of those have affordable housing built into those as well. So we at full build out, we will have quite a few affordable housing options for folks, but that's a long ways down the road. We have 45 new programs in our housing element that pertain to housing and affordable housing. We're also studying overnight warming centers, safe parking, emergency housing, and shelter operations for families. And then we're also looking at a 20% affordable unit inclusionary requirement. So if you jump back up to those specific plans, all of the market rate units in those developments will have some sort of inclusionary zoning. So kicking that up to 20% from 15% currently is just 5% more affordable units that we can get built. So the more of those we have in our community mixed in, the better off we are in Sunnyvale. Some of our other nonprofits that we work with, you'll see this list here. Is all the list of all the nonprofit agencies. It's roughly over $400,000 that we spend on a variety of services for the community as a whole, not just specifically for the unhoused and potentially unhoused, but just for folks in general. So important to know that all the money we're putting out for the community in Sunnyvale. So now jumping back on to GBI after giving you some history about what we've done in Sunnyvale housing related wise and the city, is there's roughly 100 plus GBI programs in the United States. 20 of them are in California. There are currently 6 in Santa Clara County. I will tell you that the one pilot in Mountain View is due to sunset at the end of December. And there are no plans to, I was talking with them this week, there are no plans to continue that program. There are four pilots in Santa Clara County that the county's funding. Those are really important programs. They hit a variety of folks. There's one for foster youth that have aged out of the foster system. There's one for, I believe it's single mothers. There's another one to aim to reduce recidivism. So these are all programs that the county feels countywide are really good programs to try to make sure we can use some of those dollars for. And then Destination Home also has a pilot program that they're working on up in the area. All of these are the current countywide programs happening kind of in Santa Clara County. Should be noted, Stockton, City of Stockton was the first one. So if you ever go out there and want to do a little bit of research, Mayor Tubbs at the time, although City of Stockton didn't fund it, there was a nonprofit group that really pushed it. But there's a lot of data out there about Stockton and why it all came together and all that stuff. So if you're curious about more of this, it's a good place to start with Stockton. Throughout the state and throughout the country, there's a couple of permanent UBI programs. There's the Alaska Permanent Fund, which provides funding to the residents of Alaska every year. Cook County, Illinois has a promised guaranteed income pilot program. The New York City has a bridge project pilot program. A lot of these are geared at like artists. So if you're living in a community where you're an artist, there's a program out there that might be able to subsidize you for a couple of years while you're getting your art work going and showing and things like that. So it's not just programs throughout the country that are dedicated to just a certain income level. So there's specific criteria that they look at. Some of the results of these pilot programs, and I will say it's tough for folks to see the results this far out, especially from the Stockton program, because Stockton program started in 2019, and then in 2020, the pandemic hit, and that changed everything. And so they don't have definitive results for the group of folks that were participating in the program because everybody just kind of disseminated out. But there's some theories about what occurred out there as a result of these programs. And many of the folks that were participating in the programs had a higher probability of finding full-time employment. And I've got a slide to show you on that. It increased their housing stability. And what that really means is that people who were choosing whether or not I have to spend my money for rent or for food or for gas, that extra money increased their housing stability because now they could pay for their rent and they could pay for their food and they could pay for their gas. So it gave them a sense of security. It improved their physical and mental health, not having to stress so much about how you're going to put food on the table, how you're going to get your kids to school in the morning, things like that. So it improved that. It reduced household income volatility. So if you've ever lived paycheck to paycheck and one week your paycheck could be slightly higher because of overtime, and then the following week it could be drastically lower because there weren't as many hours, this money helped level that out for folks. And then it increased self-determination. It gave people pride. Things were looking better for them and they held their heads up high and they felt proud of what they were trying to accomplish. So I talked earlier about full-time employment, and this is actual data while participants were participating in the program. But when Stockton did their program, they had their focus group, and then they had a control group that they were giving them a little bit of money, but they were just kind of interviewing them, asking them the same questions as they were their GI recipients. And you'll see that of the control group, there was just a 5% increase, 5 percentage point increase in folks who found full-time job. Whereas the folks who were getting the guaranteed income, it was a 12 percentage point increase. So these funds helped them secure better full-time employment. So, and this is an actual data they were actually able to get.
Can I ask a question? Or do you want me to wait till the end?
Probably wait till the end, yeah. So our outreach efforts were pretty large undertaking. With Dalberg Advisors, they have a lot of experience in this, so they immediately jumped in and they knew exactly who to start contacting to start getting some feedback and input from the community. They met with community stakeholders, with city staff. They engaged external experts, potential co-funders, and the experts that I'm talking about are the social service agencies that we went out and that we work with, that we fund with, talking with them because their clients, you know, they're the ones that are talking with their clients every day. They know what's going on there out in the field. They also talked with potential co-funders, seeing if there was any philanthropic organizations that had an appetite for this. They shared their initial findings with council at a study session, which we did in, I want to say this was September of last year. And then they re-engaged all the stakeholders as needed to share some additional findings and kind of fine tune everything. So we did all those things in addition to having some outreach meetings with the community. A couple of those we did. Also, they did 2 outreach meetings with potential candidates. So we contacted some of the social service networks and said, hey, can you identify 1 or 2 folks that you think would want to come and sit down and talk with us about this type of program? What would they use the funds for? Tell us their experiences. And it was centered around just the advisors and the recipients. We didn't bring city staff in for that because we didn't want to kind of muddy the waters. And they got a really true experience talking with the advisors about what's going on in their household, what an extra $500 a month could mean to them, what a month could mean to them. So it was really a really good eye opener for us to hear about these folks and what they would use the money for. And believe it or not, most folks are going to use the money for rent and groceries and auto repair and the simple things in life that they need in order to keep their household going. A little bit of entertainment they thought was nice, to take the family out and have a little bit of fun. But for the most part, it was just about the expenses of living here in Sunnyvale. So that was important in our outreach efforts to really hear from potential recipients on what they would use the funds for. So when Dalberg Advisors talks with folks, they use 4 fundamental questions. And those 4 fundamental questions are the why, who, what, and how. What are the strategic objectives for the pilot? Why do we want to do this? What are we looking for? Who's the pilot for? Who's our target audience, right? What is the pilot design? How much money are we talking about? The frequency, for how long? Do you do a hybrid model? And then how will the city fund and execute that program? Okay, so those are the questions that they asked during the outreach process. So talking about why funding a GBI program, you'll see here on this chart, there's the Sunnyvale community as a whole, and there's the broader UBI movement, right? That some folks are talking about throughout the country. And kind of in the middle is, making permanent GBI in Sunnyvale. Is that something that we can make into a reality, right? Is that something that the community could benefit from? Does it address the community needs? How do we compare the effectiveness of addressing those needs to other city policies and other things that we need to fund in the city? So having that discussion about why there is a need for a GBI program, we centered along those things is, are we addressing our community needs and how do they compare against other things that we're doing for the community currently? When you talk about who the pilot should be for, earlier I mentioned there's some very specific pilots. We talked at our study session about helping folks maybe that were, at twice the poverty level or below. I think there was discussion about, maybe households with children, but we didn't get into the thick of things. That we're just kind of testing the waters and see what council had thought so far. As we mentioned before, St. Paul, Minnesota has a program specifically tied to artists in a specific neighborhood, right? They're not looking at income, they're looking at a specific need. As I mentioned before, Santa Clara County, families experience or at risk of homelessness. That was a big one for the county. That was that 4th one I didn't mention. And then Mountain View's program just up the street from us is looking at parents with income below 30% of area median income and having a child under the age of 18. So very specific criteria of who their programs were worth, all different. So who would the pilot be for? Was kind of in that who question related to the slide we just had. But, most folks that were interviewed expressed that the unhoused residents is who the pilot should be for, so we can help our unhoused community. Also, residents at risk of becoming homelessness or recently housed. They were homelessness and now they're housed. Do we need to give them some additional assistance? Low-income families with children or low-income families going to community college. That was some of the stuff that most interviews mentioned. Some of the stuff not really mentioned as heavily was, residents at a certain area median income, domestic violence survivors, undocumented residents, foster youth, and then some of the different types of population in Sunnyvale. Those weren't mentioned as much by the interview. Still important populations, but just not as critical as they thought the others were. So typically a GBI program to be effective needs to have at least 100 participants, no more than 325. You can certainly do more, but it's going to cost a lot more to do. There's 2 types of models they talk about. There's a monthly program. So it's, you take your a set dollar amount each month and you just give it to them every month. There's a hybrid model for some folks that seems to work better, which is a lump sum up front, and then the remaining dollars spread over the 24-month period. So as an example of that, let's say somebody really wants to go out and get a full-time job, but their car is broken down and it's going to take them 2 hours to get to a job. And they've got to figure out how to get their kids to school and get their kids picked up and still try to get a job. If they had a lump sum up front of, let's say, $5,000 or something like that, maybe that's enough money to get their car fixed. And now with the car that's running and fixed, they can drop their kids off at school and get to their job in a reasonable time. That changed their lives. So for that, that's what a hybrid model is. Not the same amount every month, but a lump sum up front and then the rest distributed over 24 months. Generally, to be effective, it needs to be between $500 and $1,000 per month. It should last at least 1 to 2 years. Preferably 2 is what the consultant advised us on. It's important to know that administrative costs are roughly 15% of the distribution amount, but they could go up to as high as 40%, depending on what kind of metrics you're really looking for. So this could cost the city upwards of $2 million a year to do a fully funded GBI program for 100 households at $1,000 a month, plus the cost of administration and metrics. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at like what's our top end per year, right? So that I can give that information to council. It's important that they know kind of what the max is this could cost every year. So how do we fund a program like this, right? That was part of the study issue, was looking for a funding source. So Dalberg Advisors, they reached out to the County of Santa Clara to see if there was any interest in a partnership. They reached out to the state. There is no potential funding to materialize on this. That was very clear from the state and also from the county. The county is more interested in doing things county-wide, right? They may want to partner with a certain city for something specific, but it is the county and they want to help everybody in the county. We talked to major employers in Sunnyvale to see if there was any interest in doing some philanthropy work and looking at this. And what they had told the advisors was they were all experiencing kind of UBI, GBI pilot fatigue, that we all know it works. And it's just time for government agencies to start paying for this themselves. They don't want to have any more pilot programs. And so that kind of leads us to like, how do we do this? How do we take this to council and look for options to see if this is something that's viable, something we can do, where we're not going to get any funding opportunities from any outside agencies. So we have to consider how to fund that pilot program. We need to define the monitoring and evaluation of it, which is where that larger dollar amount comes in. Monitoring, you give somebody a card and it's loaded up every month, and then you can kind of run some quick reports to see what they're spending the money on. But then there's evaluation, and usually you have an agency that's doing interviews and seeing if this is life-changing and how is it affecting their day-to-day. All that costs money to do. The agency that is going to be providing the cards that are loaded and unloaded and reloading those, they charge a fee as well. So every player in this process would charge a fee to do this. We also would have to look at mitigating any benefit cliffs. We need to make sure that we're cognizant of what the IRS recognizes and allows as income that isn't going to be taxed, right? We don't want to give somebody $12,000 a year and all of a sudden they get taxed on it. We also need to look at what other benefits they're currently receiving, whether that's CalFresh or any kind of medical assistant benefits. We want to make sure that giving them this money doesn't put them at risk of losing those benefits. So you also have to identify some funding for anybody who loses benefits because of this program. So that's additional funding we would have to look for. And then we need to be thoughtful about governance and structure and how to engage the beneficiaries, right? What's the process? If we could get this thing funded, how do we go about doing it? How do we engage the community? How do we get folks to submit their applications? What's the vetting process? How does that all look at? So there's a little bit of administrative work that would have to go into doing that as well. That's everything I have for you guys on this. As I mentioned earlier, I'm happy to answer questions. We're not looking for a recommendation from your commission. We just wanted to kind of let you know what it's about, what we've been doing, and give you a little bit of context on it, and then answer any questions you guys have. We are taking this to the Housing and Human Services Commission next Tuesday, and then to City Council on the 29th. If after you leave tonight and you wake up at 2 in the morning and say, I should have asked the following question, I gave you guys my email address because you can email me, and just let me know you're from the commission. And then that way I can make sure that I copy Fernanda on my response. And then I can get back to you with the information you're asking. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Commissioner Rosenfeld, I think you had a question earlier.
I did. It was related to one of the slides. I don't remember what exactly I wanted to ask about that, but one of my general questions is just in terms of measuring, it sounds like most of these programs, at least the local ones, are just a few years old. Stockton started in 2019. So when you're getting into the metrics and you're measuring the success, how long has it been tracked?
So with the Stockton program, they used Penn State to track metrics. And one of the things that happened was a year into this, COVID hit. And at the same time, the wildfires in that area became pretty rampant. And people were not calling them back. They weren't able to track any of other than the expenditures made on the cards, they weren't able to really get into the thick of things at year 2 when the pilot program ended. So once it ended, the efforts to reach out to people, they just weren't responding back. They had a lot of other priorities on their minds. Some of them were dealing with fires. Some of them were dealing with more COVID related stuff, and it just wasn't important for them to return the phone calls. They did make some kind of hypothetical things that they think were occurring, which were for some folks, they noticed this money coming in, they were able to, let's say, pay off some debt with it. And so now their life was changing in a different direction. They had a little more extra money to do things for their family that they needed to, whether it was to pay their rent, their utilities, things like that. They did notice that some of the money went to help folks get some additional education, which allowed them to get a better job, which meant they were earning more money. So these were some of the things they were able to glean out early on after it was over. So those are the positive impacts that they were able to get. But as far as talking to folks like, 2.5 years, 6 months after the program ended, and then a year after the program ended, to see kind of how they were doing. And if the trajectory was still going up, they weren't able to reach a lot of folks.
Thank you.
And University of Tennessee, same thing. They were doing another study for someone else, and they found the same thing happening.
Did they figure out why? Like why the inability to close the loop?
A lot of in the research that I found, it was tied to the fact that there was no more incentive. Right. So if you don't have an incentive to fill out a survey or talk to someone for an hour, it's probably not the most prioritizing thing you're doing. So they felt that was probably it. There was one article I read that if you did a program for like a pilot program for 2 years, and then you did something in year 3 and year 4 that had a small amount of money tied to it, and you met with them at the half-year mark and then the full-year mark, you did that for 2 years, you might get more data because there's a monetary incentive to do so. So certainly something that, if we were to do a program like this, we'd probably want to look at to make sure we can tell folks this is what the money's went for and this is how it changed people's lives. Yep.
I have maybe a very naive question.
Okay.
Well, one that I was wondering, which is I can intuit why we would do this at the city level rather than the county level. I'm guessing it's so we can make sure that our residents get the support that they need. Are there any pros for doing it at the county level? For saying, okay, Sunnyvale will add to the pot of the county.
Yes, the county always obviously has more money.
Yes.
They have a lot of money, I think. And I think that the pros to that would be, we could work with some other agencies. The hard thing with working with the county is our request and requirement would be, we want it to be very Sunnyvale specific. So the
Yeah.
beneficiaries were here in Sunnyvale. And where the county, again, serves the county,
Yeah.
right? So it's very hard to say, we want to do this, but we only want to include just Sunnyvale residents.
Yeah, I thought of it because I was wondering if we could centralize the administrative.
There is
Burden of
opportunities
it.
for us to piggyback on contracts that the
Yeah.
county and the state maybe have already in place. So, but that would take some looking into, because what the county looks at for metrics may not really be what Sunnyvale would want to look at for metrics. Our council loves data, right? So I need to make sure that if we're going to be having metrics available, that it's the right metrics that our council wants to see.
Yeah,
So.
just because you can measure it doesn't mean that's what you should be
Right.
measuring.
And there is some folks out there that say if you have too many metrics, it's not good. If you
Agreed.
have just a couple of basic metrics you're looking for, that's much better. So, it would be a kind of a dance with council to see what they were wanting to see their money being spent on and what the metrics look like for the future for these folks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Were most of the previous programs hybrid or monthly, like in other cities?
A good portion of them are monthly. There is this new push for the hybrid model because there are some benefits to it. And you don't necessarily have to do one type or the other type. You could just offer it as an option so that if it helped folks out, they could do that.
And would there be any like restrictions on how they can spend the money, or is it just they just directly get the amount?
The whole point of this is to just give the folks the card and let them spend it how they see fit. Because they know what's best for their household, right? There is this preconceived notion out there that you're going to spend it on things that you shouldn't. But the agencies that supply the cards, they can give you quick turnaround data because the cards are being used at various locations. And the data is out there that shows it is not. It is being used for food and groceries and gas and utilities and, everyday things that people need to survive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? My head is spinning. Ernie, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for this.
Yep. So like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me, copy Fernanda, so I can make she knows what's going on. And we will take, like I said, we're taking this to the commission on Tuesday. They will make a formal recommendation to council, and then council will be hearing it at the end of October. It's in your staff report, but one of the things we were kind of tossing around as a recommendation is to accept the report and then ask staff to go back out and look for other funding opportunities. So, which may be kind of the direction we go. But now that we know this would be something, let's get out there and try to see what we can figure out a little harder.
Oh, that
So-
brings me to my other question. What is the role of a co-funder other than to give money? Like, do they have a say in terms of how the program is designed? Should we work with large employers? I'm just wondering.
They could, they could. A program could say, Ernie, I'm interested in how nutrition helps, school age children, right? And I'd be willing to look at a program if it was tied to this. So they very much can tell you what they would want to use the dollars for. And if you want the dollars, that's the type of program you put together. So any kind of funding that we would be looking at, we would have to go to council, make sure they bless it, they agree with it, and that it's the right thing for us to be doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys very much.
Hold on. Okay, I will now go ahead and open public comment. Oh, no, wait, I already read that. Yes. Open the public hearing. That's what I meant to say on this specific item. So it looks like we do have a speaker card, so we'll do the in-person first before we do any remote ones. Miss Marie Bernard, you have 3 minutes to, is it still 3, Janelle? Okay, we'll do 3 minutes to speak. I'll give you 5, Marie.
I think it's on now. Thank you, Nuka. Okay. Good evening, commissioners and members of the city council and staff. I'm pleased to be here. My name is Marie Bernard. I'm executive director of Sunnyvale Community Services, one of the safety net agencies in Santa Clara County, who serves as the emergency assistance network. And we're focused on Sunnyvale, all zip codes, all residents, and we've been around since 1970. The concept of GBI, guaranteed basic income, is one that is something very close to what we do. Because as you think about people who are struggling day to day and then have an emergency, we often are that big boost of financial assistance to help with rent. And then we have year-round programs to help people with food. And so this concept of upfront or emergency funding or both are ones that we see every day. There is so much need and there's not enough capacity. What I'm excited about with GBI is that it does give us a way of measuring and then targeting the way that we might be able to change people's lives and give them the choices so that they are able to determine where best they want to spend their money and where the best their needs are. And so however Sunnyvale decides to do this, we want to partner. We've got a lot of data about our own constituency, our clients. We served 11,300 residents last year, and about 95% of them are in Sunnyvale. We also have some funding that does allow us to help some people from around the county. And we also help over 800 people who are unhoused in that number. So we're very much Sunnyvale centric. We have a lot of data about the income, about the needs, the frequency of people coming. We are now bursting through 1,400 households coming for our weekly food distribution. That's nearly 4,000 people in one day on Wednesday. So if you want to see an amazing feed, you can come on Wednesdays and see us have the ballet of cars coming through, people walking up, biking up, taking the bus to get food. And we see that at the end of the month, the numbers start to spike by about 100. So we have about 1,350 who come in the early part of the month. And then at the end of the month, when food stamps run out and they have to save to pay their rent, we get another 100 to 120 families coming, which tells us what's happening in their lives. They're short of money. So we also serve an inordinate number of children. Children are 22% of the population in Sunnyvale, but they represent about 33% of our clients. And sadly, 5 people who we know who are homeless are children. They're coming to our program where they can select food on a daily basis, they and their families. So we had our back to school program. We served about 2,600 children this year with school supplies and backpacks. So we have a lot of affinity for this idea of possibly focusing on children. And again, we have a lot of close affinity with working with the schools, the both K through 8 and then the 9 through 12, the local school districts. We have some of those people on our board. Finally, we also know that seniors are also in need. And sadly, they have fewer ways of gaining more income. So the idea of increasing income for someone who's already on a fixed income is really hard. So we deliver food to 330 homebound seniors and disabled people in Sunnyvale, thanks to a lot of our volunteers. So if a focus to see what would happen would help, the bottom line is, though, it's too expensive to live in Sunnyvale. And you can think whether or not you want to have this be a way of expanding the impact, studying what might work from a local level to bolster our ability to build more affordable housing and fight for it. Because if we know that that's what people need, because that's the first place that they will put a dollar if they have it, they will do everything that they can to pay rent, to stay housed. So they'll do without medical. They won't fix the car. They won't feed themselves before they, instead of giving that up, they'll always try to feed their children and keep their children housed. And they will also try to do everything they can to stay housed. And then sadly, for some of them, their car is where they live. And that's the other reason why car repairs are always very, very important for people, for them to choose. So would love to work again, and I will always work with Ernie and with our city council because our city really cares. So thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Are we allowed to comment on this, Fernand? What Marie said? I'm always like, I don't want to break the rules. Okay, I'm gonna call it since I'm the chair. Any comments or questions from the commission or anybody else here? I did have a thought, Marie, because I did think about how the data, that was one of my questions, like, are we gonna actually get data from this? Because that's, for me, the most valuable piece. Of course, I want to help people, but because then we can direct where the services really should be, like what should the city of Sunnyvale be investing in? So I was so happy that you said that too, because that was something that I had been thinking of too, that we should be using the data to actually make decisions as a result of it. So I'm just plus oneing what Marie said, basically. There was no actual question there. I have another thought, but I need to form it and I will reach out to both of you separately after this, especially you, Ernie. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any remote speakers? Recording officer?
There are not
All right.
any remote speakers, Chair.
I will close the public hearing and we're going to move over to our next item, which is the overview of the United Against Hate Week, which is item number 240972. Is there a staff report? Thank you, Ernie. Goodbye.
Yes, there is a staff report and is related to this free two-day webinar that the city of Sunnyvale, as well as the Human Relations Commission and my office is offering to the community. The idea is to, the idea is to present to the community this webinar that will allow folks to really get into what means to be an ally. The training teaches the CLAIM framework, which is care, learn, act, influence, and maintain, and is given by instructor Whitney Parnell, who is the founder and CEO of Service Never Sleeps, a great presenter, facilitator, and somebody who is known for her type of training on allyship and who has been invited to several different presentations throughout the country as well as overseas. So I think it's a great opportunity for folks to participate in this training. Is also part of how the EAI action plan is being devised with this umbrella of allyship, where we want people to feel that they belong to the organization, to the city, where there is a real action in the sense that we are empowered to support our community members, but we also find our voices to not only step in when we see some sort of unfairness, injustice, but also to take care of ourselves and to take care of our communities through these teachings and through these learnings. It is hands-on training, so that's why it's intense. It's 2 days and it's 3 hours every day, 3.5 hours. And at the same time, you are going to get full interaction with the presenter. So that's why there is a limit on the registration. As soon as we hit the 50 registrants, we're going to be closing the webinar. So that's why it's important that people from the community, particularly here in Sunnyvale, takes advantage of this, register, and the webinar is free. It has it's pretty hefty price that we're paying, but I think it's important, and that's why we are doing the expense. We're taking care of this expense because it's important for our community. So I will ask you please to forward it again to your networks. I would like all 5 commissioners to participate. I think it's important for you and for the role that you play here, but also you get additional benefits. They are all specified on the flyer. These flyers are going to go to different locations here in Sunnyvale. So the Sunnyvale Community Services, the community, the community center. Thank you. We're going to place it in different businesses as well. And, but as I said, this information also went to the HRC email list as well as the Unity. And, it has also been shared with, it hasn't yet been shared with United Against Hate Week, the collective. And because this is a national initiative, as soon as it's posted, and because it's via Zoom, people can register from whatever they are, right? So I haven't done that just to give the priority to this community. And information went over the course of last week to some groups, then this week. So I'm just waiting for this Friday. Actually, tomorrow is their kickoff, and it will be presented to the rest of the collective. So that's why I'm saying to take care of it as soon as possible when you can. So if you have any questions about the webinar or anything else, please let me know. But this is what the presentation was all about.
Thank you, Fernanda. Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, Fernanda, can you just confirm the times? I want to make sure I have it in my calendar correctly.
Yes. So it's September 25 and 26, so Wednesday and Thursday, from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, recording officer, sorry, I will go ahead and open the public hearing on this specific item. Recording officer, do we have anybody wishing to speak either in person or online?
Not at this time, Chair.
All right, I will close the public hearing then. So now we're going to the non-agenda items and comments. So this next portion is for oral reports and announcement by commissioners and staff to share information. Commissioners first, do you have any non-agenda items or comments? I have one small thing to share. It's not strictly Sunnyvale, but it is related to creating a more expansive view, I guess, of our community in general. I want to check the date, but the Silicon Valley Business Journal is hosting an event on diverse business founders, and I think it's diverse business owners and founders, I think is the name of the title, and the challenges that they face in terms of starting and running businesses here in Silicon Valley. So I thought somebody might be interested in going. I will be speaking at one of the panels. That's why I know about the event. Okay. Does staff have any non-agenda items or comments?
Just have a question for you. When is that diverse
I
business
will look
owners?
it up right now, Fernanda.
Okay. And is it open to the public?
It is open to the public, and I actually have a few guest passes if anybody wants. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm just gonna share it because it's true. I have them. You can have them. It's September 19th from 8:30 to 11. Oh, sorry, 8:30 to 12, I'm sorry, in the Silicon Valley Capital Club.
Okay. Thank you. I do have one announcement. Just wanted to let the commissioners know that we are related to the community needs assessment. We are in the process of narrowing down the consulting firms that were part of the RFP, and we are down to 2. and we'll have some interviews soon. So I just wanted to give you a quick report on where we are at since we shared that in our previous meeting. And hopefully by our meeting in October, maybe we'll have a name. And if that's the case, I'll share with you. And then the following steps.
Thank you, Fernanda. All right, if there is nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 8:28 PM. And I would like to thank everybody for their participation in tonight's meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
And congratulations on your first chair meeting, sharing it so successfully.